Brady, he's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate
I've got
Brian Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player.
And there you
I've
are,
ever
the
seen.
Chicago Bears with a
Open
championship
defense, and Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
You are now listening to Open Season. Your host, Billy Allen.
All right. Welcome. It's another edition of Open Season, and I'm your host, Billy Allen. We're sitting courtside here with Justin Allain, Alex Torti, and Frank Bratica. We've got quite a lot to go over this week. Cam Newton was looking like Superman again. The Pats secondary got a little exposed by Russell Wilson. There was a lot of injuries to star players. Saquon, Bruce Irvin, Bosa, you name it, they're out. Gronk is looking slow and inefficient, and the Cowboys had a big comeback win against the Falcons. Celtics big game 3 on Saturday night, and a big game coming up tomorrow. Hayward had a pretty big impact on both ends of the floor. And the Lakers are up 2-0 on the Nuggets. AD hit a pretty clutch three-pointer to win Game 2. Is that series over? And LeBron was a little upset about winning MVP. But we'll start out, gentlemen. Cam Newton going against the tough Seahawks defense there, apparently. Maybe not too tough, but going up against the high-octane offense and did a pretty decent job. Pats losing that game 35-30. I think a lot of people are kind of overreacting, though, in the midst of this. A lot of people are saying you got to pay Cam Newton. A lot of people are saying maybe extend him, get him in the future plans. But all I know is that they were able to stay inside of a shootout and only lose by 5, lose on the last play of the game. What did you guys think of the effort from Cam, and what do you think of him moving forward here? Do you want to keep him?
I mean, I'm not going to come in and overreact, say something crazy, but Cam Newton is absolutely in the MVP race. As of right now, yes, I want to keep him. He's done everything right. He's sticking up for his teammates. He's just been unbelievable on the field. The stats are in favor of him. The eye test is in favor of him. The only mistake made, it was that pick, and I think that you can't really credit the goal line stand to Josh McDaniels not being smart enough to call play action there. I think Cam is definitely our guy, and I'll be shocked if we don't re-sign him after this season.
I'll be short. I love Cam. You guys already know this. Anybody who's watched the show knows this. I do not want to pay him, and that pick was brutal. I mean, how long can you stare down the same receiver before you throw the pass? The pick was absolutely on him. I don't think anything else in that game was on him. He was electric, and he threw for nearly 400 yards, which I don't think Cam Newton has in him on most days. He's been playing well. Let's not overreact. Let's not give him too much money just yet.
So I think we've all been used to, over the past 20 years, the amount of comebacks Brady's had. I don't think any Pats fan had much confidence when we were down, when they scored late with the 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and Cam drove us down the field in under 2 minutes. Then we get the ball back because Pete Carroll's an idiot and actually went 3rd and 1, tried to throw it deep and gave us another chance.
It's called Halo.
But he's been everything that and more that we could have expected. And, I mean, Brady's been decent so far, but I think Cam has been better than Brady, and he's throwing to a 34-year-old Julian Edelman that literally will not make it past week 16 if we keep this up.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He threw to more yards to Edelman than Edelman's ever had with Brady. A lot of people think that Brady wouldn't have made these receivers work, but I think some people are just going crazy with saying that Brady is being a better quarterback this year. We actually have a clip from Colin Cowherd, who's one of the people that I feel like is taking the bait on Cam. Says that Cam looks like a franchise quarterback with structure, and let's let that one roll.
Play of the game, you give it to your best player. Cam was on fire, playing with a ton of confidence, making great decisions, playing smart football. Oh, God, he couldn't beat 11 guys. I'm good with it. If that's the Cam Newton I get, he's a Patriot. He's not a rental player. That's a real NFL quarterback. It's funny in this league. you get drafted by a team, and if it doesn't go well, like Sam Darnold, you may not get a second chance. Like for Cam, great Cam, hurt Cam, Cam Act 2. I mean, I'm all in on this. I thought he was great. Including the MVP year. I like this Cam more.
So, I mean, there you have it. I think he's obviously one of the guys that's overreacting a little bit. What do you guys think of Colin's thoughts?
Here's the thing. I think he's a franchise quarterback. I'm not sure he's a franchise quarterback here. I think the scheme plays a lot to do with it. I think my biggest takeaway from this week is you hear him in post-game press conferences and he's talking about N'Keal Harry, and he targeted him 12 times. And I think the biggest issue with Brady the last 3 years is that he wasn't here in the offseason. One of the biggest things about Brady that we love is that he's here all the time. He's here in the offseason. He's throwing to Amendola and Edelman in his backyard. He wasn't doing that the last 2 years here because he was unhappy. Cam is clearly bought in, and that's why I risk extending him. Corey Dillon didn't work out on the second contract. Randy Moss didn't work out on the second contract. You can come here to revive your career, but generally when we pay those guys a second contract, it doesn't work out.
I agree 100% with you, Frank. This is a 1 year experiment, per se. It's looked great in 2 games. Let's not forget the Seattle secondary was banged up, and in the second half, that's when he really lit them up. But this is a 1 year. Patriots aren't going to offer him the contract he's going to want to get either. He's looked very good. It's been very fun to watch. It's a different type of offense than we've been used to in 20 years. But to people already saying, give him a contract, give me a break, this won't work after 2 or 3 years.
What level sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a big thing, 2 games versus 2 years of injuries. I mean, he's been great through 2 games. And to be honest, he met the challenge in this week. I didn't think that he was going to be able to throw the ball like he did, complete passes like he did. And he was able to be pretty, stoic in the pocket and able to stay there for a while. I'm pretty impressed. But again, it's 2 games versus the last 2 years of injuries. And I just think that people are saying Cam was clocked at 19 miles an hour and all this. I think everybody's just taking the cheese a little bit and getting a little bit too far. For me, I'm still pegging the Pats at around 9-7, and I think it's still going to be a hard-fought year.
Oh, man. I think it's going to be a hard-fought year, but I think that we're going to be close to that 11-5, 12-4 mark. I mean, I think the only reason you don't re-sign Cam is if he's looking for crazy money. If he has an MVP caliber year this year,
4 years, $100 million, would you do that?
Not a chance.
I would give Cam Newton $25 million a year to be our quarterback.
After 2 games,
They wouldn't give Brady
I would
2
give-
years, $50 million.
Yeah, Brady's also 44 years old. Cam Newton is 31.
They didn't give it to him coming off
Cam
an MVP
Newton is
season.
31
they didn't give it to him
years
coming
old.
off a Super Bowl.
That's fine. This is a different situation. I would give Cam 4 years, $25 million a year to take him into his year 35 season when the wheels should start to fall off, and he can't rely on those anymore. I think for the next 3 years, Cam gives us a shot at the Super Bowl.
All right, so I think everyone would agree that the expectations of this year was just obviously an unknown, but somewhat of kind of a bridge year. I mean, leading up to Cam, it was going to be Jared Stidham, an unproven guy, and then we got Cam for a bag of peanuts. We've looked good in 2 games. I still think this is somewhat of a bridge year. I don't think Belichick will ever tank, but I don't think Cam's the long-term quarterback here. Let's see how long this goes. Again, he's had a history of injuries. The teammates love him and everything. The only way we're gonna get to the playoffs is getting another receiver, and our secondary looked terrible on Sunday.
Yeah, and the luxury is that you have something that's exactly for this. It's the franchise tag, right? So we can wait on a guy like this, and this is what the franchise tag is created for. If he's worth this type of money, he didn't take the franchise clause out of his contract. We can run this guy into the ground for all, intents and purposes, basically, because he's on a 1-year deal, and then if you like him, you franchise him from there. But all these people talking about you got to give him a contract before the bye week, or you got to give him a contract before the end of the year, he won't negotiate with you. If he's not going to negotiate with me, okay, we didn't get him until June 28th. We got him for $1 million. I think there were other guys that Bill Belichick was looking to bring in the fold.
I just want to say I couldn't agree with you more. I hope my comments weren't taken as in that I think that we should extend him now. That's just bad business. And Bill Belichick is not about bad business. This is going to play out until the end of the year. No one's getting an extension mid-season. I mean, it's just not happening. And I do think that next year that there's a chance, though. As long as we're all in agreement of that, I think that there's a chance that he is going to be brought back. And I think that he could be a great quarterback for us for a long time. He's building the rapport with the receivers. He's getting familiar with the system and the coaching.
I love the idea of the franchise tag. I really do. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I would do. But everything I know about Belichick in the last 20 years tells me that's not an option. I mean, at $38.8 million, that is not a... He'd rather 2 years at 50 and then cut him after the first year.
Agreed.
Let's not forget, Darrelle Revis got, 2 years, $20 million? The second year was a complete nonsense year. It was never going to happen. It wasn't a real option, and I don't think the franchise tag is. I would love it. I also said that Cam Newton would be a perfect fit here and that he wouldn't come. So
Before we get too tied up into the whole Cam, let's talk a little bit more about some other areas on the Pats, and also let's open up the phones as well. 617-702-2542. Brian Murphy producing the show, popping open those phones for you on the other line. 617-702-2542. I think it was pretty evident, guys, that the Pats did not get a good push on their, on the front seven. And, I think it's pretty clear that their linebacking play needs a big upgrade. I think it's also clear they need another receiver with Edelman being out. Out of those two moves, whether it's somebody on the defensive line to shore things up or whether it's somebody who's a receiver, what do you think the Pats need more of right now?
They need a receiver. I mean, Belichick is an expert of coaching guys in a defensive system. Obviously, Chase Winovich is the only guy that even got pressure on Sunday night, but we can work around that. Linebackers obviously isn't strong, but we need weapons. We can't just be relying on a 34-year-old banged-up Julian Edelman whenever we need a big catch. And N'Keal Harry played well on the last drive, but that whole game, he looked terrible.
He was bad.
He was terrible. And
12 targets, I think, and only 7 catches.
Yeah, last drive, he looked great, but... And it's good that Cam's sticking with him, unlike Brady, who just give up on him. But he can't be our number 2 receiver yet. He's not there yet.
We were nickel and dime all game. The biggest problem on this team is the lack of linebacking depth. And if I didn't think so, the coaches certainly showed you. Because why else would you have that many defensive backs on the field? I don't think our defensive back play is awful. I think there was 5 and 6 of them on the field all night because we know we don't have linebackers. And Juwan Bentley, who lost weight so that he could come back faster, still looks just as slow, and now he can't get off blocks. So I think linebackers are our biggest problem on the team. I think that's hands down.
I think our biggest problem is running back. I mean, we're trotting Sony Michel out there. I mean, maybe Damian Harris comes back and fixes that problem, but with a quarterback like Cam Newton, having a running back who's an absolute stud to complement him, I mean, that's going to take us in this offense next level and help take the strain off of those wide receivers like a N'Keal Harry.
Is anyone worried about our secondary, though? Because Gilmore, through 2 games, has looked not like Gilmore of last year. And all the trade rumors in the offseason, Bill's an expert of getting rid of a player a year before he should have. I'm not saying Gilmore is going to all of a sudden not be a great cornerback, but DK Metcalf, a second-year player, owned him. And he looked terrible in the first game, too.
Yeah, I mean, Gilmore got ran right by with DK Metcalf, and I think he got pushed around by Devontae Parker. It was a good thing that Devontae Parker came out of that game early because he was straight up abusing Gilmore as well. So
second year in a row.
So I mean, I think it's something where we just have to. What were you saying?
We're playing arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. I really think Russell Wilson is that good, and he's got stud wide receivers. So I really don't want to just, knock the Pats, D-backs too much too soon. Yes, Gilmore didn't look great, but he was right there on DK Metcalf, who runs a 4.3 40 and is 6'4", 235 pounds on a deep ball that was thrown absolutely perfectly, and his hand was still right next to deflecting that ball, inches away. So I just want to pump the brakes on the Pats D-back hate. I still believe in them, and I think we're going to be just fine.
Well,
go ahead.
So I said second year in a row because Devontae Parker, the last game last year, absolutely torched Stephon Gilmore, and he won Defensive Player of the Year anyway. If you're a corner, you get beat some games because sometimes either by scheme, You know, if you're Richard Sherman and you're a zone corner, sometimes they have a bunch of schemes for man concepts, and it gets you out of your comfort zone and you lose them. If you're Stephon Gilmore and you're a bigger, handsy corner, but you go up against a physical specimen, DK Metcalf is a better physical specimen than he is a wide receiver. But that is matchup-wise awful for Stephon Gilmore, who's a bigger, lankier, handsy corner. DK Metcalf is going to get by most people. It's just that some teams that play a cover 2 and aren't trying to manufacture pressure like we were aren't going to leave him on an island.
But how about last week or 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins on those pass interference calls? I mean, some of those pass interference calls kept the Dolphins in the game. That wasn't against DK Metcalf, and that was against Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, I mean, he just hasn't looked like he was last year. I still think he'll come around and figure it out, but it's a bit of a concern.
I think he's going to come around, but I do think that rather than focus on a receiver, they definitely need a receiver, but I think that Cam's going to continue to work with these guys. He's also going to continue to extend plays and make things easier for these guys as well. I think they really need to focus on showing things up in the linebacker area. You know, Juwan Bentley, they had a stat. There were like 52 linebackers that played 50 snaps or something like that, and he was ranked like the last one this week out of all the teams. So just performance-wise, the center of our defense isn't getting it done, so I think they just need to kind of shore up things right there. Moving on to some of the injuries this week, I honestly can't remember a bigger injury week as we got one ringing through here, and we'll take you live on Open Season. Who do we got?
Yeah, this is Eddy.
Hey, Eddy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. You know, I don't hear you guys bashing the guy who was responsible for the Patriots losing.
McDaniels?
Bill Belichick,
Ooh.
One of the worst clock managers in the NFL. With 36 seconds left and one timeout, they completed a pass that I think he was out of bounds, but they called him inbounds to the 12-yard line with 26 seconds left on the clock, and they let the clock run down. They got themselves to the 1-yard line and were able to run 2 more plays instead of being able to run 5 or 6 plays. That's a fireable offense. Belichick should have been fired 7 years ago because he literally does not know how to work a clock. Math is obviously not his forte. He's good at, I guess, drafting quarterbacks in the 6th round.
I think they maybe get off one additional play, Eddy. I mean, I think you're right about that. They get off an additional play.
From the 12-yard line with 20 seconds left, you can get off 4 plays.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if you're going to get off that many plays, but you certainly could have gotten a couple more kicks at the can. That's definitely true. What were you saying about Belichick mismanaging the clock 7 years ago?
Every year he mismanages the clock. He's notorious for running the clock down at the end of the half and getting to the 1-yard line, and it's 1st and goal from the 1, and they get
worked pretty good against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. It worked pretty well against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, didn't it?
I mean, I won a poker hand with 7-2 offsuit once. It doesn't mean it's my favorite hand.
So, is there another example of him mismanaging the clock with ending it in the last play of the game on the goal line?
Honestly, there's like 1,000 of them.
I don't remember the Pats losing on the goal line like ever.
Ever?
When was the last time the Pats lost on the last play of the game on the 1-yard line?
Yeah. If that's what you're referring to. I'm talking about just giving up points at the end of the first half. He does it all the time. I would actually venture to guess that they lead the league since he's been in the league with the most field goals kicked not on 4th down at the end of the first half.
We also lead the league in scoring at the end of the half and scoring on the first possession of the second half since he came in the league.
Kicking field goals.
Sure, if that's a 10-point swing, is that bad management of the clock?
Well, I mean, we're going to see when he can't win without Brady.
So Eddy, big Raiders fan, how are you feeling this week against the Pats?
Kidding me? It's going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think Waller's going to have his way with this defense, or
I guess
probably will.
Depends if Josh Jacobs is going to be healthy or not. So.
It's going to be an interesting game. I don't see the Raiders being able to stop Cam Newton, but then again.
Oh, by the way, just I'm looking at my notes here because I keep track of all the dumb things that coaches do. And Belichick kicked from the 2-yard line down by 4 points with 6 minutes left in the game. That's any other coach should be fired for that.
You don't think you give anything to the Pats for coming up 35-30 against this team? I mean, I think a lot of people are taking this as like a moral victory or something, but they showed out a little bit better to the Seahawks than you probably thought, Eddy, right?
I mean, I thought definitely. They definitely had a good game. Just
So I'd say Belichick is a pretty
good.
good coach to at least get him up to that point. I mean, did you think that Cam Newton would be at the end of that game have a chance to run the ball in the end zone? I didn't. So I'm just saying. I mean, it takes decent coaching to get you to that spot. You know.
I suppose his in-game analytics, they just aren't good. I don't know. I'm surprised that they don't have a guy in the booth that they could pay $100,000 a year to tell them what they should be doing.
That guy's name would be Ernie Adams.
Literally, it's simple math.
His name is the Deflator.
All right, so Eddie, last night during the Raiders game, they kicked a field goal, like a 55-yard field goal. If he misses that field goal and they give Drew Brees half the field to go down and score a touchdown, are you saying Gruden should be fired? I mean, every coach has to do a risky move, like at some point during the game.
Yeah, I don't
at
know.
the end of the day, we had one play to get a touchdown.
I looked at it briefly on the win percentage calculator, and I don't think it was different either way. I think it was a coin flip.
You and your win percentage calculator over there, playing with your win percentage calculator.
Well, that's what us nerds do.
Well, hey, you got anything else for us, Eddie? Any other coaching? Any other mistakes this week, or
Mike McCarthy? Just Mike McCarthy as usual, faking a punt on 4th and 3 instead of letting his quarterback actually get out there and do something. And of course they failed.
Was that worse than the 2-point conversion? Was that worse than the 2-point conversion? Because McCarthy had a bad game. Let's just call a spade a spade.
The 2-point conversion, that was the greatest thing he's actually done. He finally did something smart.
They didn't get it. They were down 9. You kick a field goal, you're down 8, you still have a chance. Granted, they ended up...
No, time out. Do you play blackjack?
I do.
Okay, do you prefer to go first or last?
Last.
Okay, right. Of course, that's where the dealer has an advantage. When you're down 15 and you score a touchdown to go down 9, you want to go for the 2-point conversion first so that you know how many scores you're away from winning.
There's not a whole lot of coaches who agree with you,
If you extend
Eddie.
the game... And now you're down by 8. Okay, so you waste the clock. You score with 30 seconds left, and you don't get the 2 points. Now the game's over.
Eddie, they're Hayden
At least
Hurst
if you go early,
dropping
you're
on the
down
ball
9,
away from
you
losing
know
that
what you
game.
need to do.
The Falcons ran away
All
from the
about-
ball, and that's why we're not talking about that call.
It's all right.
That
I'm saying
2-point
it's all
conversion was an
about- all
awful
about
call.
information. The more
Sure.
information you have, the more you can do.
You have information of like 100 years of NFL football, and not many coaches go for the 2 in that circumstance if they don't need to.
Yeah, because they're all stupid. They all have CTE. They're literally the dumbest humans on the planet.
Okay, I guess I can't argue
Honestly,
that.
they are. They are really stupid people.
Fair.
It's a good thing football exists because they'd be literally bagging our groceries.
well, it's a good thing we have someone as smart as you to call up and tell us that, Eddie.
I know.
Thank you.
And we
right.
appreciate
All right,
you.
guys.
Hey, we appreciate you calling in again tonight. Have a good one.
All right, take care.
All right, you too.
Do we take his call if we lose to the Raiders?
I think we may be giving him a call.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What you don't know with his backwards logic. I mean, Belichick should have been fired years ago. You heard it from Eddie. So
take.
another guy who played under Belichick, who's looking a little bit more comfortable with his new team, is Tom Brady. And Gronk looking pretty slow out there, looking like he can't really get the job done. What did you guys think of Brady? What did you think of Gronk this weekend?
I mean, I think Brady, obviously, he's going to pick it up a lot quicker than Gronk is. Gronk's coming off a year of not playing football, and it's not often you see a guy take a year off and come back and dominate, even if it's someone like Rob Gronkowski. Having said that, I mean, Tom, he's going to be a stud. I think that, without the depth of camp and everything, yes, they ran a lot of practices and everything like that, but this is just – I think it's time for him to wake up, and he's going to be going on a tear through the rest of the schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't lose a game in the next 8 weeks.
That's pretty confident.
Jeez, wow.
I guess you think he's going to absolutely turn it around. I mean, and I kind of agree. I mean, I do think that this team is going to get hotter as the season goes on. And I thought it was a nice thing to see Leonard Fournette really break out. It kind of looked like he had lost his way the first week. He really had vastly different weeks, but you could see what they could do without with a running back. And they also haven't seen Chris Godwin in there and Mike Evans kind of both healthy at the same time. So I think we are going to see Tom Brady move along and still have a pretty good year. I still, for my money, I'm taking him over Cam Newton. Where do you guys stand as far as people saying that they would trade, if things were all equal or whatever, you'd rather have Brady, or you'd rather have Cam this year? How do you guys stand as far as that?
I mean, if Cam was on the Bucks and Brady was on the Pats this year, who would be doing better? I mean, we saw what Brady was on the Pats last year. It's the
Both
same
teams
team.
would be worse, I think.
Yeah,
arguably.
exactly. I mean, we saw the Brady with the Pats last year. It wasn't working. I mean, he needs talent around him. Cam doesn't really. He's not. I think he took like 75, 80% of the offensive possessions or snaps are based on either Cam running or throwing the ball. I mean, it changes how defenses have to scheme against us. I think Cam has been better through 2 games.
I think it all depends on the roster. If all things are equal, doesn't really matter. Depends on the matchup, and I hate to keep going back to that. But right now, Tom Brady's in the situation he needs to be. There's about 3 or 4 teams he could have gone to. The 49ers, although we didn't know all of their receivers and D-line were going to get injured. The Chargers, and the Bucs. And I'm happy he's there because he has his best chance to succeed, quite frankly. But Cam Newton, I think, I don't know, if you're going based on just criteria, checking boxes, I think right now Cam checks more. But Brady has something Cam Newton's never had, as much as I hate to say it as a Patriots fan. Brady's got a winning quotient that Cam couldn't dream of having. Not at that junior co, not in the NCAA where he finally won, and not in the NFL where he, quite frankly, hasn't won and refused to jump on the one ball in the Super Bowl that might have changed the outcome. But I can't say definitively which one's better because I think they're both at this stages of their career completely dependent on the system around them.
If Tom Brady had gone to the Chargers, you're telling me that if they take that 6th overall pick they spent on Justin Herbert, who looked like a stud this weekend, by the way, they take that pick and they pick up some other great piece.
They would have
for
traded
team.
back into the teams for a
Lamb,
tackle.
Take a CeeDee Lamb, pair him with Keenan Allen, and then you've got Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly, a good O-line, and a great defense.
Mike Williams.
I mean, Mike
a guy
Williams
who can win
as well.
jump balls.
Look, I think that you could actually say that his best chance to win again was with the Chargers.
I can say that.
He'd have to face Patrick Mahomes twice a year.
Yeah,
Patrick
he'll get better
Mahomes,
against-
the
He's
one
gotta
team he
play
struggles against.
He's got to play against Drew Brees twice a year now.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then you saw what I mean.
it's the first game again.
Brees
Yes,
hasn't
there's no
looked very good
fans,
either.
but Drew Brees at home. That's a tough game for your first game with a new team.
Yeah, and it was a tough game this week if you were a star player. You know, there was a lot of injuries out there. You saw Saquon go down, Bruce Irvin, Bosa, Garoppolo. Oh, this hit me close personally. Cortland Sutton on my fantasy team.
Oh, my gosh.
And I kept him. But anyway, for me, I think it's a much bigger loss for Bosa because I think he is bringing that team back to the Super Bowl and, you know, at least has the chance on the table to bring that team back to the Super Bowl, whereas the Giants are a complete mess. And Saquon, obviously, it sucks that he got hurt. But I think Bosa was going to definitely compete for Defensive Player of the Year and be part of a 49ers team that was going to be top of the NFC West. I think it's obviously, you know, stinks that Saquon got hurt. He's really talented, but, you know, that team just kind of keeps getting bit, you know, the Giants. So for me, I think Bosa is the biggest loss of the week. Who did you guys think was a big loss?
Can I cheat on the question a little bit?
For sure.
Because I think the
cheating
49ers
allowed.
Losing Bosa hurts, but when you trade DeForest Buckner and in the same game Bosa and Thomas tear their ACL, that defensive line is missing 3 starters from a team that led the league in sacks last year. I think the 49ers defensive line is the biggest loss. And that's followed up by the Broncos because I think when you lose your quarterback for 3 weeks and you lose your number 1 wide receiver, yes, Judy's going to eat. And yes, I think their offense will be okay. Driscoll didn't look awful. But you were a team that was poised to possibly break out, and your chances of doing that now are pretty much nothing. The 49ers are still going to win 10 games.
I mean, yeah, I'll actually side with the 49ers losses here. Saquon Barkley, yes, he's a bigger loss in theory, but that Giants team isn't winning anything. It's a bigger loss for a team that's going to go, 4-12 instead of going 6-10.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's the whole team got hurt. Garoppolo got hurt. The running back got hurt. Sherman's already out. I think the biggest loss is not Saquon. I think Chris McCaffrey's out 4 to 6 weeks. He is that entire team. Like, how are they going to operate their offense. I mean, he is everything. I know Saquon Barkley is the offense for the Giants, but through 2 games, even the game before that, he didn't look very good.
Maybe it'll give him a chance to learn to play without him.
McCaffrey's the best
that is
running back
true.
in football, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks. The Carolina Panthers can kiss their playoff dreams goodbye.
Yeah, and I'm sad for, the Broncos as well. They were like a young team that Drew Lock, he ends up going out for 3 to 5 weeks, and Cortland Sutton, they were a decent combination there. Oof. So that sucks for them as a young team that isn't going to be able to compete as well now with those guys out. We saw a huge comeback from the Cowboys against the Falcons, who are masters at blowing leads. The Cowboys with a big comeback. You saw, you saw Dak throw or run for 4 touchdowns, was it? And I think he passed for 1. So he's obviously building up the value a little bit on his side. Another guy that performed really big this week, though, was Joe Burrow, and I thought that guy was really poised. Sat in the pocket well, threw a lot of threw 3 touchdowns and no picks, going head to head, and I really think Joe Burrow is going to be a stud moving forward. Curious to think what you guys thought of Burrow's performance.
For those who watched the show, you almost got an emergency, spontaneous show on Friday, because when you let a rookie throw 61 times in prime time, that's worthy of a show by itself. I could sit here for 45 minutes, though I won't, about Joe Burrow, and he was unbelievable. And for the record, I think the game got a little bit blown out of proportion. I don't think his game was all that good. I think he missed a couple throws. But again, it's the confidence that a team and other professionals, 30-year-old grown men with families, having a young kid out of college where they're going to let you step back behind a awful offensive line and throw the ball 61 times when the other team has a lead and is very clearly engineering their team away from letting Baker throw, and you've got a 20-year-old kid coming in and you want him to throw 60 times. I think that's great.
I loved Burrow showing out. I loved it. I've loved Burrow since he was at LSU. But I think the story of the weekend isn't Burrow. We expected Burrow to be this good. Justin Herbert, on the other hand, man, that guy's taken a lot of criticism. He's someone no one's really believed in. Everyone was giving the Chargers a lot of crap for picking him 6th overall. And now look at him. He stepped up in a game he wasn't even supposed to start.
Chest tightness.
He
Balled out.
He looked
Balled
good.
out.
Yeah.
He looked good, but he also threw an interception at the end of the game.
He's a rookie.
Can
No, I
somebody
know,
tell
but-
me what happened to Tyrod Taylor before that game? Because they said he got a chest injury in pregame warm-up that was so bad that Herbert had to play. I mean, that was the thing that confused me. If you're going to just have Herbert come in after a game or two, I mean, give us a better injury excuse than that. I think we saw that they clearly want to let Herbert play, and it seems like I would be shocked if Tyrod Taylor gets that job back.
It's the age-old adage, right? You can't go back to the rookie. You can let him sit all year. You can play this however you want to, but you can't go back to the veteran after you let him stay. You have to let him take his lumps. That's the whole reason that you tried to sit Baker behind Tyrod. That's the whole logic behind sitting Herbert behind Tyrod Taylor. You let him play week 2, you can't take him out the rest of the season.
Well, one thing we definitely won't take out for the rest of the season is our football coverage. And with that being the end of our football coverage, as we move over to the NBA, we're going to have a word from our sponsors. So a minute from Alex here.
Yes. Today's show is sponsored by the Guru Club. If you have an Instagram account and like to shop, check out their website, guru.club, or their Instagram at shopguruclub, and find brands that will actually give you cash back on products you'd love just for posting a story to your Instagram and tagging the brand. It's as simple as shopping, sharing, and getting paid. Guru.club at shopguruclub. Check them out.
Hell yeah. We'll all make sure to do so. $500 does not sound bad to me. Now, another thing that didn't sound too bad was the sound of the Celtics pulling out that Game 3 win. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it didn't matter how big of a lead the Celtics had, and they still ended up kind of giving it. But I was not celebrating until the final whistle was blown on Saturday, and I think we saw a huge impact from Hayward on both ends of the ball, making plays, and they were really able to beat the zone defense that had kind of troubled them so much. So I thought we saw Jaylen Brown look very good. But for me, it was the fact they were able to beat the zone. There were so many times where they took the ball to the floor, took the ball to the rack. Instead of taking that three-pointer that they typically would, they were just a lot more aggressive. And you saw it in Jaylen Brown. You saw it all over the place. For you guys, what stood out?
So Yeah, obviously Hayward was huge in the bubble in the zone because he can dish the rock. It's hard to steal it from him as well. The big factor though was them actually passing the ball around and finding the open man, which they didn't do in the first 2 games. They would give it to Tatum and the ball would stop. He'd take a fadeaway 3, and that ruined a lot of things, especially when they were up big. They started going to that offense, and that got the Heat right back into it. They played their team ball, which is always the best. It's always worked under the Brad Stevens system. Find the open guy. They have shooters that can hit shots, and Jaylen Brown was a man amongst boys in that game. He went to the hoop every single time, played great defense. Jaylen Brown could be our best player so far in this series.
I think we still lose that game without Hayward. We still had guys going off. We still had Marcus, Jason, Jalen balling out. Hayward made the difference. He kept the ball moving. He made plays that are game-winning plays. And, we have a lot of talent, but missing a key piece like that, an all-star level talent like Hayward, you just knew they were going to come out on fire with Hayward back. And you just knew, and they showed up, and Hayward showed up, and he did a great job on offense and defense. I mean, we're not trotting Semi Ojeleye out there anymore. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for Game 4. I think we're going to take this one.
Yeah, and I think you spoke to exactly what a return of Hayward does. He allows you to lengthen your bench, and it feels like the Celtics have been playing with a little bit too short of a bench. The Celtics have really outplayed Miami this entire series, and it's really been the third quarter. It seems like, I don't know if maybe Brad's message is getting lost during half. I don't know what it is, honestly. But these guys have not been able to kind of get things going in the right direction in the third quarter. But they're certainly getting things going now, and I think with bringing Hayward into the fold, I think he was able to just open up so many more lanes. And they're able to make some additional passes. They really look good. We actually have a clip from Tim Legler breaking it down for us, what exactly the Celtics did so well that helped them in their comeback, or helped them win that game.
They do different in this one, I guess just closing it out.
Yeah, and I think Brad Stevens is going to hand out a book called Closing Games for Dummies, I think, is what they need to look at, because even tonight, there was no reason for it to get that close. But, Kenny, the bottom line is this. They've led in 101 out of the 144 regulation minutes so far in this series. So they have played some pretty good basketball, and they really did some great things offensively in this one. I just thought they were very aggressive in their reads and their dribble penetration attacks. And their defense really triggered a lot of this. Very active and manic, like you would expect the team to be down 2-0, but these are great decisions. Kemba Walker early here, don't pull this out. Attack. You've got a whole side of the floor to yourself. You see the shift. There's 8 guys on the right side of the floor. Use your quickness. This is a great set to start. You get a perfect read by Jason Tatum to draw 2. And then Wanamaker doesn't take that 3, which is a great decision. Drive it back into the lane. Make a better play for your best player. Attack the zone. Get in the gaps. And then a great decision to kick it out to the corner to Williams. Overall, their attack against the zone had better spacing, better balance. You saw a lot of this. Straight line, dribble, drive, attacking gaps, whether it was against the zone or against man-to-man. I thought that their forwards, a couple of all-stars that the Boston Celtics have, they were the best 2 offensive players on the floor. And their mentality, you could see early, was that they were just going to beat the guy that was in front of them. Use their length, their athletic ability, their handle, their finishing ability to attack. And Miami was on their heels pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, so, Tim Legler put it right there, but so much of the dribble drive, so much of the penetration, so much of the good decisions. The Celtics, like I said, they've really outplayed Miami a lot in this postseason, but it's just been Miami's runs that they're able to put together. Tyler Herro was going off for like the first quarter or whatever it was, but they weren't able to get enough guys contributing. And, I think we saw, just the Miami team that had kind of run at it. I feel like the Celtics are the team that's much more talented in this matchup.
Yep.
And, it all comes down to that in these type of moments. So when they're able to have 4 guys going with 20 points and you're able to have a guy like Hayward who put up, I think it was 6 points, 4 boards, didn't really come across huge in the stat sheet, but to have a guy like that play 30 minutes and be a superstar, be able to hit that 30-point, or be able to go for 30 points, but also be able to be pretty passive and open up the offense really helped us.
Man, Hayward did so much though. 6 points, 5 boards. What do you have? 4 assists, 3 steals. I mean, he did a lot, man. That full court pass on the rebound. Whoo! Love seeing that. And not only that, they brought Hayward off the bench, which is the most perfect place you can bring a guy like Hayward off of. Marcus Smart coming off the bench versus Hayward coming off the bench. Give me Marcus in the starting lineup every time. Hayward working with those second-team guys, or not second-team guys, but that second unit coming as I like that a lot better than I like Marcus Smart.
I think Hayward's going to take a while to get his feet underneath him, but I think as important as Hayward was coming back, the threat of Hayward is crucially important. Because I brought up the point, it's infuriating when NBA players act as though they've never seen a zone. Like, you've been playing AAU your whole life. You make them move, you attack the seams, or you can shoot from the outside. Those are really the 2 ways that you beat a zone in basketball. And in the NBA, everybody can shoot. That's why you rarely see it. What was happening with our offensive scheme is we weren't playing within a system. We were saying, you take it, you take it, you take it, which works if you have Kobe and Shaq, which works if you have Dwayne Wade and Shaq, which works if you have LeBron and Dwayne Wade. If you have an ensemble, which is what we have, you need a system, or at the very least, you need humble basketball players willing to pass it.
Yep.
And Hayward brought that to our team because he's one of the highest players on the team, and he's humble enough to be a distributor. And
Good
again, I'm not
decisions.
sure that and we said it, the box score isn't what tells you everything he did. What tells you everything he did is that he can be in the center of that zone, and every Miami Heat player tries to close out because he's going to hit a free throw. So if he's in the middle of that zone, you have to move. And that's when he passes it and becomes a threat.
I'll say another last thing about it, though, that was crucial for us winning. Players like Jay Crowder were not hitting shots. In the first 2 games, every time I'd see Jay Crowder hit a three, big shots. They were missing wide open threes. I mean, Kelly Olynyk was hitting bricks. Duncan Robinson wasn't the Duncan Robinson from Game 2. It was the Tyler Herro show in the first half. Jimmy Butler wasn't that much of an impact either.
2 games.
So, in the first 2 games, we could think, well, we had the leads and everything, but they were hitting those shots. They didn't. We didn't allow them to come back in the game. And again, Hayward being there makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, and I think you're really starting to see. I mean, I think a lot of people question who's the heart and soul of this team. You hear Marcus Smart a lot. I want to put a vote out for Jaylen Brown. I think he did incredible in terms of taking the task at hand, which was really to drive to the hole. And he just showed with his aggressiveness. I really thought that he set the tone, and I think he also set the tone defensively. He really made a couple huge steals down the home stretch of the game as well. So Jaylen Brown, a guy that I've always, the criteria for him has always been a little bit higher because I was a guy who liked Jamal Murray in that draft. But Jaylen Brown is really looking good. He's been the most consistent player, I'd say, on this team too. And I think he also really set the tone in terms of what they needed to do in terms of driving at the basket, whereas Tatum hasn't really been able to set that type of tone. And, as Justin had kind of said, he felt a little bit more into hero ball, a little bit more into isolation. We saw Jaylen Brown come out and set the tone that was going to be all about driving to the hole. And, I just think he's been our most consistent weapon. I think he's a huge part of this team's success.
Not even just this in the playoffs. He's been the most consistent player the entire year on the Celtics. Tatum had its up and down. Before the COVID break, he was our best player. He was playing lights out. But at the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, he was game after game. He'd be 30, the next game be like 16. Brown has been consistent every single game. You know what you're going to get from him, but you have to give him the ball. When he just stands in the corner the whole game, he's not effective. Give him the ball, he can get to the hoop, and his 2-point shot is getting much better since last year.
I think Brown's our tone setter. I totally agree. I think that he's the guy on offense you look at. If he's driving, he's going and he's attacking the rim, that amps the other guys up, strikes fear into the defense. And they can play around that. I think that the defense has to adjust to that. And at that point, it just opens up the offense for the rest of the Celtics. And it's funny because Marcus is our guy on defense. He's that tone setter. And I think both those guys need to just take each end of the floor, set the tone, because when offenses are worrying about Jaylen, then Jason Tatum's going to hit you. Then Kemba Walker's going to hit you. Jaylen is the key to our offense balling out.
I'm just not sure Jason Tatum is mature enough to be everything that we're going to need him to be a championship caliber team. But that's yet. And he's a little bit younger than Jaylen. I think Jaylen's been the best player in this series, and it almost pains me to say it because I am a Jason Tatum fan, but he's just not quite ready for that moment. And again, it's the ball movement. It's the ball or the lack of ball movement that killed us in games 1 and 2. And one thing that we haven't brought up that I think was bad in game 1, but like indefensible in game 2 was the body language. I mean, the body language was so bad, and the finger pointing and the blame deflecting, and that is not a Celtics roster. That really isn't a Boston sports team thing, except for David Ortiz, but we'll leave that alone. But the finger pointing thing looked so bad, and even the game we won, even last game, if you look at the footage of them coming off the court, Kemba Walker's trying to amp up Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum looks like the most miserable guy who's ever just saved his playoff life. And I hate to see that. And it worries me because the nucleus of our team going forward, our priority is Jason Tatum. And if he's going to act and sulk after a win, I'm just not sure you build around that guy.
Can he drink yet? Is he 21, 22?
Yeah, he can
22.
All right. So
You're not sure you build around Tatum?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have his ups and downs. Granted, I agree with you 100%. But the one thing that everyone, and myself included, has to realize, even though Jaylen Brown's been our best player this series, no one's doubling Jaylen Brown when he gets the ball.
Ever.
Jason Tatum, the defense focuses on him. And that's why I've been saying all along, give the ball to somebody else. Like, pass it. Don't just get caught in a double team when you dribble it over half court. That's why having Hayward back, he's another option with Kemba to dribble the ball up, and he can avoid the doubles because he's a high IQ basketball player, and he knows what to do with it. Jason Tatum acts like he's never been doubled before his entire life, and it caused all those turnovers in Game 2 and Game 1. So keep doing what we're doing. I think we can win this in 7 games.
Do you think Miami changes its game plan a little bit before Game 4? Do you think they do anything? I mean, for me, they've just got to emphasize Bam Adebayo a little bit more. I mean, I think Jimmy Butler needs to make some more plays. Tyler Herro has been really good in this series too, and I definitely think Miami can put together something pretty good with a coach like Eric Spoelstra. You know, they're definitely not going to be hit in the face with this, and they're going to come back with something. What do you think Miami does to change things up before Game 4?
Give Bam Adebayo the ball every single possession. We have no answer for him. 0. Daniel Tice is not blocking anybody. Cantor can't play a lick of defense.
Cody Carlson says Daniel Tice is the tallest 6'8" guy ever.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he gets 3 fouls within the first 10 minutes. But granted, we have no answer for him. And our perimeter guards can at times keep up with Herro and Duncan Robinson. But Bam Adebayo he looks like Shaquille O'Neal against an average basketball team. Just give him the ball down low. He gets it in every single time.
I think that Goran Dragic also has to get going. You saw what he could do in the first 2 games when he kind of had free reign. Then they put Marcus Smart on him a little bit, and things really slowed down for him. I think he's got to be able to knock down shots and be able to lead the offense and make a little bit more plays too. I think he was kind of down in that 3rd game. You know, understandably when you put a guy like Marcus Smart on him, but I think he's got to get things going as well for Miami.
I don't think I've ever been more confident in the Celtics down 2-1. I don't think I've ever been more confident in seeing a Boston team down 2-1.
What about the Ben Gordon Bulls? We went 7 games with that team.
Were we down 2-1 to the Ben Gordon Bulls?
I believe so.
Well,
that
I was
series
down
went
2-1.
I believe so. I'm not positive.
I don't
went
think
7.
we were down 2-1 in that. I think that they just fought.
We went to 7. I know that.
He had like 40 points in 1 and 2.
That was the peak of Ben Gordon.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Still, no. That's perfectly fine. That is a good team to bring up. But I am just so confident we are going to whoop the Heat's ass these next 3 or 4 games, whatever it might be. Even if the Heat squeeze one out, I feel like this Celtics team just woke up and they see the recipe to beat the Heat. Spoelstra's going to have to make changes. If he doesn't,
he's a good coach.
He is a good guy. He's going to have to make some big changes, though. We figured out to bust this zone. I'm not afraid of it anymore.
Yeah, I'm not either, and I think you know, you kind of hit on it. They figured out how to beat that zone, and I don't really know where Miami goes from here. But I think that there's I think the Celtics, I completely agree with you, Alex. I have to say, I wouldn't be surprised if they won 4 straight here and won the series in 6 games. I feel extremely confident about this team, and I think the fact that they got so pissed after Game 2 was something that we all like to see. A team that's ready to just die, you probably wouldn't have seen that, and maybe if we're on another team, we're making excuses as to why that's a bad thing. But for me, I like the fact that they cared that much. I like the fact that they threw chairs. question for you guys is: you think it's the fact that they threw chairs, or you think it's the fact that Hayward came back? What do you think played more of a part in the win?
Probably both, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Everyone knew Hayward was coming back. That's huge. But I think they had to vent the air. I mean,
All right, we've got one ringing through here. Maybe somebody wants to talk a little bit Hayward. See what they want to talk about. Who do we have?
Yeah, it's Whitey from Queens.
Whitey. Thought we'd never hear from you. Is
The infamous.
Man, the myth, the
is the
legend.
power back on?
The power's back on. I think I just overloaded with my big screen TV, watching all these sports. I overloaded the circuit or something.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
know, but I'm good to go
Short-circuiting
now.
on us? All right, well, what do you got
But-
for us?
I just wanted to quell your guys' Celtics fandom and predict live on the show that the Heat are going to win this series.
Oh.
You have that in how many games?
I think it could go 7, but I got the Heat winning ultimately. You know why?
Tell me.
Because the Heat have a killer in Jimmy Butler. The Celtics don't have a killer, even close to Jimmy Butler. They have talented players. Yeah, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Could raw talent may have more raw talent than Jimmy Butler, but he's an absolute killer. And the only killer the Celtics has is Marcus Smart, who's obviously really not that good offensively. Like he bricks a bunch of threes.
So he's pretty consistent in this playoff run.
So do you think the first 2 games, Jimmy Butler was the reason they won those 2 games?
Well, I think he's the heart and soul of that team. I mean, you just watch him. He makes defensive plays all over the place. He drains threes. He's the total package. He's basically like the Kawhi Leonard effect, where he basically alters both sides of the floor with his intensity, with his hustle, with his athleticism, and with his talent.
Where was his killer instinct last game? Would he kill to the point of 14 points or something?
Yeah, I mean, a man's allowed to have an off game every now and then.
But
it happens.
I don't think he scored 20 points in any game so far in this series. I mean, I think they've won the games because their three-pointers shooters got hot, and the Celtics were blind, never knowing how to play in a zone before.
Whitey, don't you think that they can't guard us, and at some point we can guard them? That's the most frustrating part of the first couple games, is that they have a bunch of shooters, and that's great. And in the bubble, you get an added 4 points of accuracy. But if we decide that we're going to be vigilant and lock them down, and they make the same decision, we have defensive players they don't have.
But I think the Heat also have better three-point shooting.
Sure.
I mean, this
Yep.
Tyler Herro is an absolute stud. This kid's like in his second year, and he's draining shots left
One
and
pick
right.
away
They have
from being a
Duncan
Celtic.
Robinson, who's a no-name center who can just drain. Well, he's not a center. He's a big guy, but
Power
he's not
forward.
a center.
Imagine having Tyler Herro instead of
But he
Brandon
hits threes left and right. They have Andre Iguodala, who's a veteran presence in that locker room.
They benched him in game 2
Hey,
and
hold
3.
on. Whitey, have you watched Andre Iguodala? He has not done crap the entire year. I'm just saying.
Well,
I'd rather have.
I mean-
They're choosing Jay Crowder over him. So you can name the names, but I'm not giving you Andre Iguodala.
Well, what did I say? I said Andre Iguodala is a presence in the locker room. I didn't say that he's lighting up the Celtics on the floor.
All right.
I think the Heat have, obviously Jimmy Butler's he's the driver for this team. But all the guys in their
Bam-
starting lineup don't give up. Like Dragic never gives up. Bam never gives up. Tyler Herro's a beast. That's the one thing.
Bam Adebayo is the second coming of Shaq. This kid is.
Oh my
absurd.
God! What?
Giannis is the second coming of Shaq.
Oh no, Whitey.
Who is?
Giannis. Bam Adebayo is the second coming of Juwan Howard. Can we please relax?
Juwan Howard.
Yes.
Juwan Howard's a bum.
He'll be lucky if he puts up a career like Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard
thank
put
you.
up a hell of a career.
Thank you. You
Let's be
think
real.
Juwan Howard's a bum? Go back and look it up. He's going to
Whitey,
end
you're
up with better
remembering the
numbers than Bam.
38-year-old Juwan Howard if you think he's a bum. But honestly,
Bam Adebayo, what is he in his third year? This kid is a stud. He blocks everything in sight. He's gaining an offensive repertoire down the rim.
He's
Like,
playing
the Celtics
against
have
Daniel
no answer
Tice.
for
He
Bam.
has no offensive move. He has no arsenal. He doesn't have a drop step, a hop step. He has nothing besides be more athletic against Daniel Tice, which I could not do because I am 5'8". But if you're Bam Adebayo, you should be able to dominate Daniel Tice.
Are you
Can we
telling me
just calm
Daniel
down?
Tice can even come close to guarding Bam down low? It's not
No,
even
that's my
close.
point.
no,
That's my point.
That's the point.
Is that he should be doing this. If you get him against a Giannis or an AD, if you get him against anybody who's comparable size and just tougher, he doesn't have an arsenal of post moves, much like Dwight Howard. Once Dwight Howard stopped being more athletic than everybody else, he didn't have enough of an offensive game to continue his dominance. Bam Adebayo is not the second coming of Shaq. Shaq could dribble. Shaq could pass. Shaq could drop step. Shaq could also out-physical you, but he had skills that Bam Adebayo can't put down on paper.
Bam is
before your blood pressure goes off the page. I don't think no. I'm just saying I don't think any of us are debating whether or not Shaq is better. I think this is a fully Whitey argument here. But I just have to drop this. Somebody said Andre Iguodala looks like an extra in Friday After Next. Cody Carlson. Gotta like that drop.
No.
That's pretty funny.
No,
I just think this Heat team is deeper. I mean, if you look at the Celtics, they're playing mostly the same people all game, and the Heat just have men just next up. I mean,
what? But they have men like Jay Crowder and stuff. I feel like they don't have any. So, would you rather take? Who do you think has more talent, the Celtics or the Heat?
I think the Heat do.
They have more talent.
You think they have more talent, White?
No.
I don't know. They got something. They have something that's more than the Celtics.
They have intangibles and coaching. I agree with you. But to say they have more talent is not true.
The Heat were down double-digit points in both games, and they came back and won. I mean, that just shows, look at what the Nuggets did. They were down 18 points to the Clippers, 16. They come back. That shows grit. That shows mental toughness. I just think they have, an intangible. I mean, I think the Celtics may be a year away. I mean, there's too many games where you have Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart shoot 2 for 15 from 3. I think that just kills the team when you're shooting a bunch of threes and you're missing them all. And the Heat I don't really see the Heat bricking threes left and right. I see Tyler Herro sinking every three and Duncan Robinson nothing but net. And it's pure nothing but net. It's not
because they're in a bubble.
Banks in.
Because they're in a bubble without a crowd, and they're better shooters, and that's what happens in that circumstance. But if we decide that we are not going to blame everybody on the court, we're not going to finger point. We just decide figure out where you need to be on help defense and use your athleticism and your skill. We're gonna win. That's why I brought up the body language. They have intangibles in coaching. They have better three-point shooting, which in the bubble is amplified. But we have more talent. And we have a switch that we don't know if we have yet because they're young, but if we have it and we flip it, the Miami Heat can't stay with us.
But what happens in the playoffs, though? Does talent win or do intangibles
In the
win?
NBA, talent wins. That's a ridiculous question.
In the NBA, I'm taking talent, White.
Are you where the Celtics and the Lakers have 48% of all NBA championships combined? It's because they had Magic and Wilt and Kareem and Havlicek and Russell and Paul Pierce and Garnett and Allen. Do you need me to continue?
Do you know what
Kobe, Bird?
You know what scares me?
All those players were absolute dogs. They had so much dog in them. Has any of the Celtics
Ray
players
Allen has no dog in him.
Smart
We won with him.
Showing that they have dog and intangibles? I don't know.
Well,
dog wins in the playoffs.
The one thing they have that we don't is Larry Bird, Kelly Olynyk.
Did the 2011 Mavericks have dogs, or did they have two dogs? Did they have Caron Butler and Sean Marion, or did they have a team full of dogs? Because as I recall it, J.J. Barea, Roderick Bobois, and Dirk Nowitzki won. You know why? Because they had Dirk, and he decided that the Miami Heat couldn't guard him. Talent wins in the NBA. You've never seen a team less talented win, or you've seldom seen it. The 04 Pistons, maybe.
Well, Whitey, before we yell at you anymore, we are getting close to the end of the show.
Hey.
So we appreciate you calling in. And
by the way, what are you guys doing? You're not social distancing over here. You guys are sitting right next to each other.
It's better for the camera shot, don't you worry.
We got to get in the camera.
Man. I was just going to say congrats to the Yankees getting to the playoffs. But, hey, I did predict it back in March the Red Sox would be the worst team in baseball.
I thought we were going to be
That's a good prediction. I love it.
Yep.
The Yankees won what? They've won 8 of 9 games against them this year?
Yeah, well, they're
that's been their big their only source of wins lately.
It's home run derby.
They've won 10 in a row.
But we'll let you go with that, Whitey. We appreciate you jingling us up from long distance.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, before I let you guys go, do you guys want to throw a little wager on the on this Heat Celtics series?
Yeah, what's your wager?
I guarantee you I will call next week and gloat. And if that's not the case, I don't know. I'll think of the punishment.
Sounds great.
Shave Alex's head.
Sounds great to us. All right, we'll see you next week.
All right, fellas.
All right, later.
Right.
So that was everybody's first Whitey experience.
What an experience.
Wow.
Shaq. Are we still at Shaq? Oh, my God. Versus Bam Adebayo? I don't see the similarities. And I think that pretty much short-circuited Frank.
Yeah. I didn't even know what to say.
I don't know what he's been watching.
Hey, it's fun to talk
about. Is it
about.
possible he's been watching this series? I don't know.
Hey, Bam looks good. He doesn't look like Shaq, but he looks good.
He looks like Shaq against Daniel Tice, but Daniel Tice is 6'8". And I feel like what the Celtics are going to do from here on out is play their best five, really. You know, we've seen a team that's kind of tried to do that throughout the year. I think they're only healthy together for like 5 games or so. But with Gordon Hayward back, got to like him getting some more minutes in the next game here. And speaking of minutes, that's going to do it for us. And we don't have any minutes left as it is 9 o'clock. And that's going to do it for us, this edition of Open Season. We appreciate everybody who tuned in from Seasons 52. We are tuning out, and we'll catch you next Tuesday.
I'm just not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Brian Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense.